From browsing and analysing game companies' card designs, to reviewing articles and videos that cover trading card game fundamentals, I am now going to take a step back from the polished articles, the refined in-depth viewpoints, and see what mechanics you love. That's right, James here, and today we are on Reddit to see what the people say are their favourite TCG game mechanics. And I am also planning on doing a follow-up video on the most hated game mechanics in TCGs. So if you want to share your experiences, share your stories, put them in the comment section below and you may feature in that next video. Thank you very much. So the question today, what are your favourite game mechanics? So Will Agaton 21 says, my favourite design in card game is what I call dual purpose cards. It allows cards to either be played as a resource or as printed. Made popular by Duel Masters but has been used by other games. It fixes getting mana screwed or mana flooded. It also makes deck building a lot more straightforward. Because cards will be played as resources, you want multiple copies of cards in your deck. Some to be played, some to be played as resources. So yes, I agree this is a good feature to have because it is a case of you could still have a bad hand. There is still something you can do to get the game rolling. You might have to use one of your good cards, so there still is an element of risk, but it is a diminished risk comparing to Magic the Gathering's land cards, where in Magic the Gathering, though it is unlikely, you do have the potential to draw a handful of lands. What do you do in that case? I guess I'll play a land and skip a turn. But dual purpose cards solve two problems in one. The first one being, at the start of your game, when you have expensive cards in your hand, you are able to cash them in for resources. And then the other problem being, at the end of the game, when you're drawing cheap cards that would be more useful at the start of your game, you can then cash them in for more resources. Those cards that would be useless at that phase in the game now still serve a purpose. Okay, so following up, we have Some Tiny Dragon. I enjoy external resource systems. A modern example I like is the Digimon memory. Nothing is stopping you from using all your memory on one Digimon, but your opponent also gets more advantage for it. And of course, I agree with this because I even have some Digimon cards making some clutter on my desk as we speak. So yes, the Digimon memory gate system is quite an interesting one because essentially you can put yourself into debt to bring out more expensive cards. But when you do that, that debt is going to go to your opponent. Now your opponent has more resource to spend on their turn and they can essentially spend over their limit as well, but with the added resource that you gave to them, so then they can bring out even bigger things. So the game can feel like a bit of a pendulum swinging sometimes, you know, sometimes it swings one way more than the other way and it can get frustrating. But if you can just corner your opponent and get them to overspend, then the momentum will then swing your way, and it's quite an interesting way of playing, and it's a different play style that you don't see in many other TCGs. Now this next one is from Pedicius, who I recognize from the Shard TCG Discord. So let's see what Pedicius has to say. So personally, I like the summoning mechanic of one creature per turn. It removes complicated resource systems and stops the hindrance of a resource deficit. I find it very unappealing to have to build only half a deck because the other half or more has to be resource cards. So I think he's having a little bit of a dig at Magic the Gathering and obviously favouring Yu-Gi-Oh's playstyle, where you're not using a resource, you just get to free play one card per turn, and then based off their effects you can then combo them into special summons and things like that. Now I'd be curious if he expanded on this a little bit more, because what he says here is, I find it very unappealing to have to build half a deck because the other half or more has to be resource cards. Now, does he just mean strict resource cards like in Magic the Gathering and in Pokemon? Or is he talking about other cards that like to generate resources separately from just being identified as a resource card? For example, like in Shard TCG, we have cards where we can convert one resource to another. So we have mana and shards, and they can be interchanged. And then of course you can tap into your life and change it into shards. And there's lots of ways to chop and change your resources. You can shuffle things around quite a bit in Shard TCG. So I'm guessing he doesn't mean that because he plays Shard TCG. So if he doesn't like the mechanic, he wouldn't play the game. But just another way of analyzing it, I suppose, is taking a look at that and how much of your deck is actually being utilized towards just generating resources. Of course, if you can create different ways of generating resources, there's still flavor in your game. There's still some feature there that people will fall in love with and pick a certain style over just a blank card that says energy. So when looking at mechanics for your TCG, remember not to just look at TCGs, but to look at board game mechanics, to look at video game mechanics. You can even look at YouTube. YouTube has a mechanic, and that mechanic is called the like and subscribe button. And you have to make sure that you utilize the like and subscribe button. So give it a little practice while you're on this video now, and we'll get back to the video. Sorry for that. So Delve from Magic the Gathering, removing cards / banishing cards from your card to help pay for the cost to activate a card is one of my favorite mechanics. Reducing the cost of a high powered card is always clutch. Something could cost 8 but have Delve, so you can pay, for example, 3 of your actual resource cards and then banish the remaining 5 cards from your graveyard. Now this is a good example of a good mechanic because it incentivizes ramping up late game play. You don't have anything to banish at the start of your game. Therefore, this mechanic is quite weak during the early phases of the game. Later in the game, when you've been battling for a bit and your discard pile starts to pile up, then you can start to tap into that resource more. So this is why you should really consider things like this as well. Think about when the mechanic becomes useful in what stage of the game. Now, I have also done a video on the power curve. I will put it above my head right now. And it's a video where I'm reviewing somebody who is talking about ramping up gameplay and how the game can progress naturally. So if you want to learn more about that, make sure to check out that video. So Clay Xros says counters being used as alternate play costs. Bear in mind, I've seen it done well like twice out of roughly 5 TCGs, and the one I like the best is not one of them. Really, I'm making my own game specifically so I can focus on streamlined counters so they're easy to manage and nice to as a play style. Right, so I was not sure what they meant by counters. Before somebody else asked, the answer was pretty much markers of a status that carries over between turns. So like in Pokemon, when you have damage counters, it will be a way of tapping into those. But my personal best example would be Shard TCG again, of course, the game I designed with Richard. We use counters. We have so many counters. We've got like strength and weakness tokens that you can flip over for whether their attack is up or down. We've got shield tokens, we've got vitality tokens to increase hit points, and a lot of these tokens can actually be used to cash in for certain things. Like I was talking before, when we were tapping into life, when we were tapping into mana and shards, we can interchange a lot of this. And with Shard TCG, when you've got those counters on the field as well, a lot of those can get cashed in. Instead of spending your shards that you would normally do to summon a creature, you can strip wounds off your opponent, essentially healing them back up in order to bring out more creatures of your own. What I would say though is if you're making a TCG, I would try to limit the amount of counters that you put in the game. Persistent damage is interesting and it's a different play style because you can have long drawn out games. Your creatures aren't designed to just be destroyed right away, but you are relying on your players to have counters. Suddenly they aren't just carrying a deck around, they have to have external resources, and this is something that needs to be taken into account as well. So just keep it in mind when you're designing your TCG. Alright, so this one's interesting from Cortex Jackal. I love mechanics which give you an advantage now, but then subsequently either provide an advantage to your opponent at a later point or come with a reasonable risk to yourself. So this is just what I was saying with the counters. Like in Shard TCG, you could strip your opponent's wounds, essentially healing them to then get something out yourself. So that is that exchange, I suppose. Ashes to Ashes, early Magic the Gathering card, did this really well in the old school era. It would get rid of 2 creatures, but you lose 5 life, which is a quarter of your life. Yes, that is a big cost, but you can wipe out 2 creatures. So it's a good way of clearing the field when your opponent has that advantage. I've talked about this in Catch Up Mechanics. I also have that video. I'm going to plug it now. It's going to be above my head. Catch Up Mechanics. So when your opponent has these huge advantages, your opponent shouldn't feel 100% safe. There should always be something that you can do. Of course, it normally is tied to a large cost to yourself as well, because if it is just something where I can play a card and it wipes out you, then that feels unfair. But I can play a card, it wipes out you, but it's also hurt me. But now we're on a level playing field. It seems kind of okay. So either it has to be a large cost, whether it's costing more resources than you normally use, or it has to give your opponent another advantage. So destroy your opponent's monster, but then your opponent can summon a new monster at the next level down. That's something where you go, okay, so your opponent can kind of adapt. They've got something in play now, but it's not really what they wanted. You've taken away a part of their advantage. So if you want to learn more about catch-up mechanics, make sure to check out that video that I've just mentioned after this video. Right, so following up from that topic, we are diving into the board games now. What card game mechanic do you consider to be the most unique, original, and or fun? So first up is Sigma 83, spending an action to draw a card in Netrunner. It sounds really simple on the face, but it is single largest mechanical reason I prefer Netrunner to Magic the Gathering. In Magic, you draw only once on your turn during the draw phase. Your deck is 60 cards large and you start the game with a 7 card hand. So on your turn, you will see a 1 in 53 of your remaining cards in your deck. Barring any effects to search your deck or draw more cards, you're pretty much stuck with what you have. Mana Screw is a concept where you can't draw enough resource cards to play the actual cards in your hand. It's an important concept in constructing your Magic deck, but every so often you will draw a hand with absolutely nothing. Mulligan for nearly nothing, and then proceed to get nothing through your deck. Yeah, we've all felt that, and I think we've all felt that in quite a few TCGs as well. It's not just Magic the Gathering. No, I know Magic is very prominent for it because of Mana Screw, like they were saying. The new digital game Hearthstone mitigates this by giving you a free resource each turn. I like Netrunner's solution. Do you not have the tools you need? Draw until you do. If I spend my whole turn drawing, no card effects, no searches, I will have seen 4 more of my 45 card deck, which is pretty big, 9%. Add that to the 5 cards I've already got in my starting hand, and I've seen 20% of my deck. And in that 20%, I should have something that can let me deal with the situation at hand, whether defensive, offensive, or even an effect that just lets you draw more damn cards. Sounds really simple, completely changes how I feel about the game, because when luck screws you, at least in Netrunner, I can do something about it. And yes, and what I want to focus on, what he said here, maybe he didn't realize, right? When he starts bringing up percentages. So that's 20% of my deck that I've seen. And this is odds. This is randomness, right? So what he's talking about is mitigating randomness. So drawing a card is input randomness. You make the decision to draw a card, or the rules say you draw a card. That is set in stone. But the card that you receive is random. So by being able to drawing more cards, you're increasing the percentage of the deck that you're able to get through, which means you're mitigating your input randomness, because the more cards you have, the less random it becomes because of the arrangement of cards that you have pre-formed inside your trading card game deck. So without getting too complex, let's just say draw power good, lack of draw power bad. Right, so I'm going to do one more. So from Pagan Bacon, we've got, I really like how the Warhammer Fantasy LCG handled economy and whatnot. Each player had 3 zones. His kingdom, his quest zone, and his battlefield. Monsters played in his kingdom zone contributed to their strength to that player's income. The cards you draw is determined by the strength in the quest zone, and only creatures in the battlefield can actually attack. So with this mechanic, we're going to focus on the zones of the mechanic and deploying different cards into different zones and what they can actually affect in a card game. So say that you have a TCG where you incorporate multiple stats onto one card. Once you have several cards out, it gets quite complicated quite quickly. So say that you had one zone to deploy one card, and that card is what does the fighting. But you're starting to get a little bit bored. What do you do then? Because you want to deploy more cards to help, but help in a different way that isn't incorporating those same stats. How about a support zone that perhaps goes next to it? If you play a support card onto there, perhaps it only deploys one stat from that card onto your main card. This helps speed up the game because now that you're not looking at two sets of cards with multiple stats, you're still focusing on your one card, but looking at the support card and that one thing that they're contributing. Now you've got diversification. You might have an added extra effect in the text as well, but you're keeping things relatively simple. This is a good way of utilizing zones. Deploying different zones within your game can create lots of fun mechanics as well. You could create a game that almost looks identical to another TCG, but by making different zones, and those zones are your one unique mechanic that allow the game to function differently, to allow the cards to interact in a different way, it will start to feel like a completely new game. And at the end of the day, you only need one, maybe two unique mechanics in your TCG. Once you have that, you can just copy and paste off other TCGs. You already know the format works. Draw one card per turn, or draw two cards, or draw to change resources, whatever it is. Just take a pre-existing game as your skeleton and then add your unique mechanics and take away some of their more unique features that maybe people would associate with that game. Once you do that, you have your working game. There isn't much tweaking to make a game that actually is functional. But the main thing is, it needs to resonate with your audience. And to resonate with the audience, it has to feel. The game mechanic is just one small feature that gives your game a little unique twist. But everything else combined is what actually makes your game. So this has been a fun talk, and remember, I will be doing another video on hated mechanics, so we've got that to look forward to. I also have these fun packs to open as well, so we're going to be seeing more of that. I've been James, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.